Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here. So today's video is actually a quick tip on something I literally discovered this morning mistakenly, right? So it's about how you can actually make your Cinema 4D matrix object, right? Which is matrix object. You can make it dynamic, right? And I used it to create this particular effect where like a text is dissolving and now dissolving into particles or whatever it is, right? And you can make it dynamic object where it can be affected by turbulence. All these simulation forces here can be affected by. And I also used it in this particular scene. Let me actually pause here. Use this in this particular, created something quickly here, and you can see it's like a ball falling, and whilst it's falling, you can see wherever it passes and it touches the matrix object. I mean, I'm cloning on. Let me actually hide the clones and bring down the matrix, right? Wherever it touches the matrix object, you can see it gets stuck to the ball, right? And it was something I discovered mistakenly, and I don't know, I've not actually seen it anywhere, or maybe, well, I didn't know it works, right? So let me quickly show how I actually came about this. So let me create a sphere, right? In a normal cloner object, come into my object cloner, make the sphere a child, and you can see we have our cloner here, right? And now if I right click and come to simulation, add cloth tag to it, hit play, you can see as usual it's cloth tag, so it's working dynamically. Now one thing you can do is that you can actually convert your clone into a matrix. You can swap it basically. So if I select the clone, come to my mo graph, and I say swap clone slash matrix, you can see convert the cloner to matrix. So I did this and the tag was still on. Hit play. I didn't know it will actually work, but then it took some second, and now it does its calculation, and now you can see the matrices are falling. I thought it was maybe because we have the clone, so it's still working, but I was fascinated, and then I went in to create a full matrix object here and make it like 10 by 10, right? And now let me go, actually it's not even necessary. Let me go ahead and right click simulation and add the cloth tag directly to the matrix object to see whether it will work. And I'm surprised. If I hit play, you can see if I hit play, it's actually falling. Now my matrix is being recognized by the cloth tag, and it's acting like particles on their own, right? So for instance, because now there's gravity in the scene, let me actually control D, come to the simulation scene, and let's take off the gravity. So if I hit play, nothing will happen, right? It will just be staying at the same point, but can go ahead and now add all these forces, like the let's add turbulence and add it, increase it, and if you hit play, it should be able to and that's really interesting. I never imagined like the cloth tag working with the matrix object in this way, right? So when I realized that, I went ahead to play around with it with several things. So for instance, the size of, so it's basically acting like some sort of particles, right? But then you don't have so much control, but a bit of control over it. So the size of the particles basically is determined by the thickness here, right? So for instance, if I increase the thickness to like say maybe 15, right, and let me disable the turbulence and hit play, right, it will actually explode because it sees that's big, it's intersecting basically, so it will explode like any dynamic object when they are intersecting. So the size basically controls the thickness, control the size of the particles, or all those things, right? So I went ahead to use it to create something like this, a text like dissolving and now releasing these particles and being affected by the dynamics and stuff like that, which I can quickly show right now. And also I actually created this particular scene where like this sphere is falling, right? Right, but as it's falling and it touches any matrix object, you see it gets stuck to the sphere, right, all the way. So any sphere that matrix object that is in the way of the sphere, it gets stuck to the sphere, and that's really interesting. So let me quickly show how like the text one, right? So I'll come in here and I'll create my text, right? Let me actually make it one letter, so S is fine in this case, right? Let me make it a little bit bold, so I'll change it to bold. And all I have to do is to, first of all, let's give it some segment. To do that, I'll actually use the remesher. So I'll come in here and I'll create a remesher. I'll make the text a child of the remesher, right? So that it breaks it down. Let's change the display so we see the segment, right? Select the remesher and let's increase the density to something like, yeah, I think 500 is fine for the sake of tutorial, right? So that you'll be faster in calculating and everything. And I must say, I mean, you can use this similar technique on the Cinema 4D bullet dynamic, but then it's quite slow, right? Even though in this case with the matrix it's also slow if you are talking in terms of particles, but probably in cases where you think you can use the matrix, it's a bit faster than the bullet dynamics, right? So maybe, but the bullet dynamic also gives you a lot of control and everything, which this one can give you, but some cases this one can also be helpful, right? So now that like I've remeshed, let's go ahead and create a matrix object, and now select the matrix, change the mode to object, and the object we want to clone on basically is the remesher. So right, and let's basically, we've created our matrices. You can select the matrix and set it to something like the polygon center, so that every polygon will have one matrix. It doesn't matter though, we can also make it on the surface and now determine the number of sphere or matrices. Let me actually make it on the surface, and now let's increase it to like probably 5,000, right? And let's make the matrices small, so come to transform tag and make it maybe 0.2 across. So now if I hit play, oh, we've not added the tag. So if right click on the matrix, come to simulation tags, and I'll add the cloth tag to it. Let's hide the remesh. Now if I hit play, it will basically explode because it's intersecting, right? It will take a second for it to calculate, but yeah, it will work. So you can see this thing matrix are falling, so you can see because of gravity and everything it's actually falling. And this 5,000 matrices, right? I'm sure if you're using bullet it will probably be way slower, and in this case it's playing fairly okay. So from here going, what I actually did in the original one is that I set it to polygon center so that they don't intersect and explode in the beginning. So I'll select the matrix once again, go back to polygon center so that every polygon will have one matrix, and also I'll hit Control D to go to simulation. In the gravity, I'll set the gravity to 0 so that you know it doesn't fall when you hit play, right? But because of the radius, remember it's still sort of moving about. So let's actually select the matrix and see if you can reduce the cloth tag, come to the thickness and set it to probably 0.2, right? And if you hit play, you see everything stays almost where it is because it's not intersecting. So from here going, how do I get this to be affected by the dynamics? So what I did was to use vertex map. So I'll right click. In fact, let's increase our number of segments, the density of our matrices to probably 700. I think you should be fine. I try to play with low numbers when I'm working, like recording and stuff like that, so that it doesn't crash. And talking about crashing, actually it did crash, but then I've actually reset the whole thing. So I've actually set the remesh to 700% so that we get enough details in there. Like I said, I don't want to push it so far so that it doesn't crash. I don't know why it crashes when I'm recording and try to do some things, right? So now that we have here, if we hit play, right, you can see our matrices are falling, the cloth tag, everything is working, but we don't want it to fall. We want it to fall, but we don't want to use the scene's gravity. So I'll hit Control D and come to the simulation tab once again. Scene gravity, I'll set it to 0, the gravity of the simulation to 0, and now if I hit play, it should stay still and nothing should happen to it, which we want. And now I'll come in here to the simulation tab here, and I'll come into the forces, and I'll add the gravity ourselves and also the turbulence ourselves. Let's for now disable the turbulence, and now the gravity, because we add it, we can have control over this particular gravity. So if I hit play, you can see it falls, right? But because we have fields here, we can control the gravity. So in my original case, I actually use the vertex map to control the growth of the gravity. So I right click here, come to other tags, and I'll add a vertex map to it, and I'll select the vertex map. I'll come to in here, and I'll create something like a spherical field. Let's make it smaller, and I'll move it. I have a lot of tutorial that explain this particular process here, so I'm not going to slow down in this particular case. So I'll come in, add the spherical field here, and I'll come to my layers, modify layers, and I'll add the freeze to it. I'll actually bring the freeze down, and let's clear the freeze, and then I'll set the spherical field to max, and now let's select the freeze, change the mode from none to grow, and now if we hit play, it should basically be growing. You can see our vertex map is growing, so it's fine. Let's set it to like 50 so that it's a bit slower. And now we want that vertex map to control the gravity, so all we have to do is select the gravity in the fields, and let's drag in the vertex map, right? So if you hit play, you can see it starts falling from here, and now it continues like that. Let's actually put some plane as a collider. So I'll create a clean plane here and move it down somewhere here, and then let's right click and add a collider simulation, a collider tag to the plane, right? Let's in fact hide it now. So if you hit play, it will be falling, but then it will be falling on the floor, and you can see everything stays where it is, not really accurate. So let's actually move the plane a bit down, and also select the matrix. We want to add a little bit of bounciness in it, so let's add like, probably, I think 1 is too much, but let's add it, why not? And if we hit play, you can see now it's bouncing but still intersecting, passing through our collider, and probably that might be because of, maybe let's increase the segments of our plane, or maybe the best way is to actually use maybe something like a cube as the collider here in this case, and instead of the plane, let's actually use the cube, and let's hide it, and maybe that one reduce the particles passing through our collider. Yeah, so yeah, I think the cube actually does work. So now you can see our gravity is working, and it's being controlled by the vertex map, right? So you can also use the same thing. So let's enable the turbulence, select the turbulence, go to the object tab, and I'll increase the strength and also the scale. And if you hit play, you can see it starts right from the beginning, but then we also want it to be affected where the vertex map is also working. So now all I have to do is select the turbulence, come to the fields tab, and drag and drop in the vertex map. And now if I hit play, you can see, oh, actually it's not working with the turbulence. Why is it? Oh, and that's because, like I said, it's the how do you call it, the tag, the thickness is quite big. So let's set it back to 0.2, and now it don't intersect, so it will gradually grow. So we can even hide the remesher or the text for now. So you can see this is how we have our matrix coming on and falling. So now that if you are cool with the animation and everything, right, we can simply select a plot tag, right? And because it's like a dynamic object, the matrix, you can select the plot tag and come to cache and say calculate cache, so that it bakes it, and you can now play through with it like any object. So now after it's done, I can now drag and drop it, and you can see it falls like regular like objects, and I can scrub through the timeline. So that's basically how I got this to work. And then from here, I use this same vertex map to control the visibility. So now I'll select the planar matrix object, come to effectors, plane effector, and I want it to affect not the position but rather the scale. I set it to uniform scale and set it to -1, right? Everything is disappeared, And now in the planer, come to the fields, and I'll drag and drop in the vertex map in here, and you can see it's doing the other way around. It's instead of the other, like revealing it, it's actually making it disappear. So what I can do is that I can select the remesher once again, right click on it, come to simulate other tags, and I'll add another vertex map. Right, let me drag this one out, and I'll name it vertex map, like say 2. Right, and in the vertex map 2, I'll come to the fields tab, and I'll drag the first vertex map in the fields tab so that you have the same thing here. But in here we can now add the invert layer to it. So let's invert it, and now we have it inverted, right? And it should work. But then if you hit play, you can see it's not working. But if you select it somewhere, the vertex map, you can see it works. But then it needs to be refreshed. So we have to force to refresh it. And to do that, let's select the vertex map in the vertex map 2, the vertex, this one. Come to the remap tab here and hold Control to click on the mean. Click on this one to set a keyframe, and let's get to maybe our last frame or something, and set like something small, 0.01 movement, so it forces it to refresh anytime we play, so that you can see now it's working. And now we will use that one to affect our plane effector. So I select the plane effector, delete the first vertex map, and now let's drag and drop in the vertex map 2. And now you can see if you hide our text, you can see now it's revealing matrices, and they are falling. Right, it's following the dynamics and they are falling. So that's basically how you get it to bring it on. And now you use that same vertex map in your material. So for instance, I'll create a material, right, and now apply it to our text. In this case, let's bring it back, double click on the text, and we want to use the vertex map to affect the alpha of our material. So let's select alpha and click on this triangle here, come down to effects, and the effect, what we want is the vertex map. You can do the same thing in Redshift, Octane, Anode, all everywhere, but in this case, this is a quick demonstration using the standard renderer. So now in the vertex, let's click connect, and now let's drag and drop in one of these vertex maps in here. And now you can see, let's change the display to normal garage shading, and now if you hit play, it's not showing. Let's actually go ahead and save the scene, call it Tude1 something, just to save it. So now that it's working, let's actually render our scene, and you can see it's working, just that it's not showing in the viewport. I don't know why it happens in some cases, but it's actually doing the other way around. So if you hit render, you can see it's revealing, but we want it to actually be disappearing. So all we have to do is select our material, come to the alpha, and let's set it to invert, and now it's actually disappearing, and that's what we want, right? So that's basically how I created that particular scene where the text is falling and everything is showing, right? And you can use it to do a lot of interesting stuff. Now the other scene with the sticky ball as well. So all I did was just a normal sphere. Let me change the display to icosahedron, a normal sphere, which I've added the cloth tag to it, right? And I've also cloned the matrix like on the plane. So I've created a matrix object here. Let me hide this clones, right? I've created a matrix object here, and I've cloned it on the surface of the plane, right? Now if I select the matrix object, let me actually do this and come to the surface tab and put the stickiness to 0 and hit play. You can see our matrices will be falling, right? So what I did was I make it sticky. So I set the stickiness to 1 so that it sticks to something, and the thing we want to stick it to is this same plane, right, which is the collider. And now if I select the plane, its collider tab, you can see that one too is set to, the stickiness is also set to 1. So now the matrix object are now stuck to this plane. But one thing I did was that with the sphere coming, I also applied a stickiness to it, but I actually made that one stronger. So the stickiness of the plane of the sphere is actually 5. So it's able to sort of rip it off from the planes holding the matrix, right? Because this one is stronger, it's able to rip it off from the plane. So that's basically all I did, was to set this and add stickiness to all of them, but make the sphere ones more sticky, and now it actually makes the scene works and interesting. One thing I forgot to add is that all these things are sort of possible, I think, in only Cinema 4D 2023, probably 0.1, because that's a 0.13 or something. That's what I'm using. I'm not sure this works in R26 or other version, but the version of Cinema 4D I'm using is 2023.1.3, right? So I think it works in Cinema 4D 2023.1, but if you are using 2023, just try it and see if it works. If it doesn't, then it means you have to use Cinema 4D 2023.1. So that's something I discovered, and I felt like I should share it. Also, like, this was just using that, but it can also act as a cloth tag, collider tag as well. So for instance, let me create another scene here and quickly create a plane. Right click on the plane simulation and add a cloth tag to the plane, move it up, and if you hit play, can see our plane is falling. But we can actually create, let's say, a matrix object here, and now let's reduce the count a bit, right? And now we can actually right click on the matrix object and go ahead and add a collider tag, right, to the matrix object, and it actually will work. So if you hit play, it'll take a second as usual, but when the plane falls, it will actually collide with the matrices, and you can see it's going, and now it's colliding with our matrices.